All right. So today we're going to talk about the allure of staying inside the box. And I'm super excited about this conversation, Rose. So do you want to kick it off for us?
Sure. So, um, there were a couple things that have happened for me recently, and I had to think about, do I want to step out the box? Do I want to go beyond where I am? And then I thought about how safe it feels to be where I am, right? So I thought that it might be interesting to explore. It's in a way, to me, it's sort of like intoxicated in a way. In other words, staying where you are. You know the lay of the land. Um, you know the actors, and it doesn't really require a lot of you. Whereas when you step out of the box, when you're forced to grow, to stretch, it's all unknown territory. And there's fear around that, understandably, because you don't know what you'll encounter. And most of us prefer to know the lay of the land. It feels safe when we know what is expected. So I just thought that is because I struggle with that, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
I just thought that maybe that would be something we can explore, and how choosing to stay in the box, what could be the consequences for us as we move through our journey.
Yeah. So let's kick it off with, what are the pros of staying inside the box?
So the words that come to me is safety, knowledge, um, security, um, very little risk, right? There's very little risk. Um, you've mastered your environment, so you feel confident. Um, and I think that those are like the big umbrella things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
So what
in
are the, oh, go ahead.
going as in a world that's shifting, that's so it almost makes you want to do that, right? Like everything else is outside of our control. World events, political events, etc., maybe work situations, family situations. There's so many things moving all at the same time. So why not stay, at least have a place where you can feel safe? Why not have a place that's carved out that you know that you can run to for safety?
Mm.
So to me, that's the allure of staying there, right? It's a constant in a shifting world.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So what are the pros of getting outside that box?
Growth, seeing how far you can go, possibly attaining the dreams that you've set out for yourself, um, meeting new people, experiencing different things, adding to the wealth of what you know and who you know, and I think, adding layers of value to your life.
So what are the downsides of being outside your box?
Um, not, fear, fear of, will I figure it out? How will I fare in this new realm that I have no knowledge of? Um, especially I think if you don't have enough other people around you that are in that same journey,
Mhm.
right? So if most of your family friends are pretty much staying where they are, no judgment, but they're just sort of where they are, and you're curious, right? You want to know. Um, so a lot of times you have to step out on your own. And there's a sense it could be lonely. It could be frightening, it can be scary, it can and so I think that those are the things, and then that adds to the uncertainty of everything else that's going on, right? That's another layer of an uncertainty, similarly as the reason why you'd want to stay for one thing that's constant. So it's the flip side of the coin, right? Um, and so, what I think about when I think about that, then the question is for each person, um, they have to determine and it's hard. I was going to say that they have to determine whether it's an endeavor they want to engage in at that time. But for me, I have always found it's always a worthwhile endeavor. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I don't know what I'm doing. but I figure it out, right? Like a new job or a new situation. At first, you know, you have to get the lay of the land, and you're learning. And I think that that's the big piece, right? You're learning,
Mm.
and to me, it comes up that, you know, that phrase of, do you prefer to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in an ocean, sort of idea. When
Yeah.
you step outside, you're a small fish in an ocean. You have no idea where the wave is going to take you. You've never encountered this level of force. And so, you know, it's understandable. But for me, even when I've stepped out and even when I was scared, I always looking back, right? Of course, at the time, it feels scary, right? Because, and I think I've said this to you before, you know, you can't sort of keep one foot on the land and one foot in the boat. You have to literally pull away from the shore. And that's scary. But I've always found it worthwhile. And I've always, when I look back, saw the value of what that means to stretch.
Mm. So a couple things that you said that that popped out to me is having people who are on the same journey.
Mhm.
I know you and I have experienced that when we decided to do the presence-based coaching
Mhm.
and really start to understand how to be present in the world and what that means. Nobody else in my world at
Right.
that time was even talking about
Me too.
mindfulness or
Right. Right.
presence or
Right.
any of that. And the idea of putting something into practice when there was nobody else doing it
Mhm.
was pretty scary.
Mhm.
And then I found this group and then you specifically,
Right.
and we've been on this journey together now for over 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Just about. Yeah.
So that stood out to me. The other thing that really resonated with me was small fish in the ocean.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I'm at right now.
Good.
Like
That's how I'm
that's
like,
so accurate. I'm like,
mhm.
oh crap. And it's super scary to be the small
Yeah.
fish in the big ocean.
Hmm. Yeah. And then add the layer of, it wouldn't be so bad if there's other fish like you around. So you're like, okay, well, we at least are a legion going somewhere. But when you're alone, I mean, like, so if you don't have, right? Like, we were fortunate to have each other. Because we had been coached to that same system. So there was a familiarity, and then we can springboard from that. I've always wondered how much more challenging this journey would have been if I didn't have you to bounce against.
Honestly, so I've taken other kinds of coaching classes before.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it into practice in my coaching career. But I can tell you that this has been the easiest for me because I had you to bounce it against. And because we spoke the same language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times for people who are new to coming into coaching and stuff like that, coaches, every industry does this. So it's not just coaches, but every industry has their own language. And one of the things I know that you and I have talked about is this idea of, do people even know what we're meaning when we say holding space?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I didn't, it was a foreign idea to me. And even
Mm-hmm.
after, for me, even after we left PBC, um, I understood it a little bit intellectually, right? But in my heart space, in how do I actually live that? Like, how do I execute that? How do I play that out in my relationships, in situations that arise? It took me a while. Um,
So
and
Rose,
so
will you
it's,
share what your definition is of holding space to maybe put it into words that people can understand?
yeah. So for me, I brought it down to sort of like just suspending my ideas and my thoughts and listening, right? So I mean, that's as basic as it can be. So if you're talking to me, I become a true listener in what you're saying. I come in, so the way I thought of it and it helped me was that a boxing ring, right? So conceptually, so you're in the ring and I step into the ring with you. Once I step into the ring with you, every single thing for you and myself falls off, then except the conversation that we are in. So now I am fully vested and fully present to listen to you. And I'm not thinking, oh, well, what's a comeback? What am I going to tell her next? What, or I have to go to grocery store. Like I have to be able to land myself. And I think as I'm coming to understand, before I can create space, I have to learn how to be in the now.
Mm.
Because if I'm not able to be in the now, if I step in the ring, I'll still have the ideas, what do I have to do next? And I'm not fully vested with you. So I have to be able to separate myself in a normal day, right? Like I do it when I'm reading. When I'm reading a book, I'm just focused on the story I'm reading. Or if I'm listening to music, a lot of times I'll close my eyes and just listen to the musical instruments. All ways to separate me from the world. When I'm gardening, I do the same thing, right? Like I'm so focused on what I'm doing, the world steps away. All of those things help me develop the capacity to stay in the now. So when I step in the ring with you, it becomes easier to be able to disengage because I'm doing it in little ways in my world. So it took me a long time. I mean, we did PBC in 2020. I think the idea of holding space for someone that where I've been able to sort of use it, maybe it was in the past year that I can honestly say, hey, I'm present, like I'm fully present. So you're talking about 3 years of understanding this concept, knowing that that's the case, wanting to do it, but it took me a while, but that's because I had to get into the now first.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know for me personally, when we're coaching and you're holding space for me, it's a gift. I don't know if I tell you that enough, but thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody creating, for me, I visualize like just this empty room,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just this empty room.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are sitting in it, if I'm visualizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just created this bubble that can house and hold the ideas that are coming out
Mm-hmm.
in a very non-judgmental way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to the idea of subject versus object as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when Rose creates space for me to talk about stuff, she's allowing me to bring things that are really held close inside out and take a look at them and understand, is that really what I believe? And I think that's so important because humans are amazing. We assimilate a lot of stuff very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're around people who are negative, if you're around people who aren't on that same journey as you pick up on things from them. And then when Rose is holding space for me and I bring that out into the open and I'm like, oh, where did that come from? It makes a huge difference for me.
Yeah. And, as you were speaking, the other thing that came from me, and I've never really necessarily tied them together, but the ability to suspend my mind or to suspend my ideas or judgment has to come from a place of understanding that you have a right, an equal right, to have whatever thoughts or ideas, right? So for instance, I can remember having conversations with people and they're sharing and I'm ready to insert myself, right? Like I'm ready to say, hey, you shouldn't think that way, or that's not how you should process. Hey, let me show you a better way, my way. And I've come to the point of saying you have an equal and valuable right, valid, I should say, valid right to your opinion, to your idea, how you've arrived at it, because we're all a product of how we were raised, the people we were interacting in,
Mhm.
systems we've been part of, our, just everything that impacts our life has left an imprint. So all of us are different, even among siblings. Even people who live on the same street. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're all, because there's an individual within each of us, and we process differently. And if I'm able to recognize that you have a valid and a legitimate right to have a different opinion from me or to arrive at a different conclusion, it's easier for me to suspend my judgment.
Yeah.
But if I think you have to look at it my way, it's my way or the only way, then when you're talking, I'm ready now to find a way to direct you into my way.
Right.
But if I have no dog in the fight, so to speak, because it's your journey and it's your unique journey, yours is not mine and mine is not yours, it's easier for me to suspend judgment because I have no interest in trying to alter you.
Yeah. I think that's an important point, right? You have no interest in trying to alter me, but you want to hold space so that I can alter myself.
Right. So you can unfold how you need to unfold in your own way, at your own pace, and help you along whatever journey you're in, right? But I'm just holding space to help you figure it out because it's already inside of you. Oftentimes I realize we just want somebody, we just want to hear it. It's just, and you and I have talked about this. A lot of times, obviously, there's things inside of us, we don't even realize it, right? It's happening on the subconscious. When we coach, when you're coaching me and I say things, a lot of times you'll hear me say, where did that come from? Like, where did that come from? Or, oh, I said that. Or a lot of times, even when I'm saying something and you come back with a reflection or you come back and say, hey, you used this word, some whatever. And I'll say, I did. And a lot of times because I'm just putting it out there, I'm not even aware of the things I'm saying or even where they're coming from, but obviously they were here. So there's some value obviously in verbalizing it, because then it becomes that object, right?
Mm.
Right. And then there's power in your word, right? Because once you've put something out there, you're almost responsible for addressing it, for looking at it, for lifting it up there.
So one of the things that I wrote as we started this conversation is something that you said a long time ago when we've been coaching, and you said, once you know, you can't unknow it.
Correct. It's the Pandora's box, right? You lift it, you can't undo it. You can't unring the bell. You can't, and we've talked about this, right? Like I never imagined, to be honest, right? Because I went to PBC with the idea, as you know, coaching was going to be after my next career. So I wanted to get going, etc. I did not expect it to actually impact my life the way it has. And I did not expect it to open doors inside of myself. And one of the things that, as we've been coaching over time, and I've said this to you, I came to the realization that the greatest journey I could really ever undertake is into myself. Mm. And I thought, like with coaching, hey, if I figure these things out, it'll be easier. I'll get a better sense of myself. I do, but then I have more questions, because every time something comes out, it's like I tell you, it's like the reverse. The onion doesn't get smaller, it gets larger. And so it's like, oh my God, when will it end? And then that's when I sort of came to that realization, there is no end per se. It's a fallacy. It's just one continuous journey upon which we continue to unfold.
Yeah. And I think as you were saying that, and as we've kind of are wrapping just this conversation up, I think learning to give yourself grace. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Give yourself tons of grace as you're going through your personal journey. Yeah. Whether you're working with a coach or not, right. Grace for yourself gives you room to grow without judgment. Correct.
And again, there's no time frame for this. There is no schedule. It's just as it's unfolding, and being okay with that, And so the idea of this box, right, where we started this conversation, I think that for me, the ability to come out of the box was I was curious. Not so much about the world outside of my life, but I was curious about me. Right.
Like
And
what
I
kind
was
of curious? Like what were you curious about?
why certain things upset me, right? So like when I'm being coached and I get triggered, or even if I'm not even coaching, if I'm interacting with someone and they say something and it bothered me, I would be like, why is that bothering me? You know, it was a simple question. Why is that? And I didn't always have the answer right away, but it was always sort of churning in my mind, you know? And I was like, well, why is that? Or what value system is that attached to? And this comes back to my thing about that we all have pillars, right? There's those things that we didn't realize how strongly we hold to them until a situation presents itself. And then you get curious about that. Well, why do I hold this? Or why do I hold it so strongly? And just being curious, asking those questions of myself sort of caused me to be curious to find out more. And it propelled me. So it wasn't a conscious like, oh, today I'm stepping out the box. It didn't really happen in that sort of mechanical way, but it was just, I was curious about, there's got to be more than I'm experiencing. You know, where are other people who are struggling like me? Those type of questions. And then I was seeking them, right? Because I'm a believer that what you look for, you will find.
Yes.
So as I was trying, and then so I keep peeling back. And then I was keep being amazed at the fact that how well did I really know myself? And it turns out not as well as I thought, you know, and that's okay. And I will continue. And I think that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right? Because the journey is constant. It's constant. And you have to feel uncomfortable. You have to get into a space where you know, it's okay to feel like you're fledgling. It's okay. Everybody's trying to figure it out too, you know? And so, and that's that grace you're talking about, giving yourself grace to say, hey, I don't have to master this. I just have to, you know, even if it feels like I'm salmon swimming upstream, it's okay. The important thing is I'm asking the question. I always come back to ask the question.
I love that. So any nugget of final advice to somebody who's like, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready to get outside my comfort zone, if I'm ready to get outside the box?
Well, I think it's, you will when you're ready. You will when you're ready. And if you're not ready, that's okay. So I know we read this last week, but I'm going to just read the first two lines. It's Mary Oliver's The Journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Right. Yeah. So I would say just trust yourself. When you're ready, you will know it. Not because someone told you, not because you think it should happen now. You will just intuitively know it. And you'll risk it. You'll risk it. Awesome. Such great advice. Thanks for having this conversation with me today, Rose. I really enjoyed this. This came up to me last month. I really enjoyed this.